We are global community miners, working tirelessly, never giving up.
How are you?
I'm good. Hi, Matt.
Oh, nice
Thanks.
to meet you.
You too. Thanks for including me in today's session. Hi, Terry.
Hi. Good to see you again, Rob.
You too. I appreciate the opportunity, Matt, to talk to you and to share things that matter here.
Oh, no problem.
Okay, so yeah, like the numbers talk, Matt. There's 45 million miners, give or take 225 million people fully supported by ASM. So it's spread over 80 countries. So 225 million people, 2.5% of the world's population. It's massive. And along with that, there's a further couple of 100 million who earn part of their livings through ASM. They sell food, shelter, clothing, equipment into the sector. So at a very basic ground level, the scale of the sector is massive. Economic importance, ditto. So what do you have? You have artisanal miners involved with precious gems and minerals. You have critical minerals, and you have other things, stones, quarrying, whatnot, sand. So thinking about precious gems and minerals, 20% of the world's gold, 80% of the world's sapphire mined by artisanal miners out there. Oh, did I lose you, Matt? So connections, Behonky. So the footprint on the precious metal side is important, and it's financial security, because you think about gold as currency, you think about diamonds, sapphire, so on, precious gems, and greasing the wheels of economies. So critical minerals, that's the second part of ASM. And it's really about the energy transition. Copper, cobalt, manganese, nickel, list goes on. They're all minerals where we just don't have enough. And we know demand's soaring because we need minerals for our batteries and other parts of clean energy solutions. We know that the capacity in the global mining industry isn't there. So artisanal miners can deliver against part of that capacity and can grow their current footprint. So if we don't have enough copper, for instance, or enough cobalt, simply put, we don't have an energy transition fast enough. So the importance can't be overstated. Then the third part, more traditional, quarrying, rocks, sand, and so on. Again, it matters for construction, it matters for industry. So there's a massive human footprint, there's a massive economic footprint as a starting point. So the question ends up being, what's this all about? What does ASM look like? What can it deliver? How can lives be improved along with economies? So the first point is ASM's diverse. Happens in 80 countries, more than 80 countries. That means it looks different in a lot of different places. In some places, there's dignified work. There's genuine opportunities. There's entrepreneurs involved. In other places, it reflects really sad socioeconomic realities, really sad conflict in areas. So you end up with child labor, you end up with forced labor, you end up with grinding poverty, you end up with mercury poisoning, and everything in between. So opportunities for impact, when you think about that profile, are incredible. But there's a handful of things that go soup to nuts across ASM when you think about it. So challenges. Number one, there's lack of financing access, because there isn't an investment marketplace where London or New York or Toronto or other major investment hubs would really understand what ASM's about, would really understand how to target opportunities in a way that manages risk. So an opportunity is to deliver financing in ways that make commercial sense. A second opportunity is, in a lot of cases, artisanal mining legal frameworks are inconsistent. It's traditional work. It's communities on the ground. It's communities that were there first before large-scale mining companies, but it's deemed illegal. It's a choice. It makes no sense because the people have been on the ground doing this kind of work for a long time. So legal frameworks that are fit for purpose is the second opportunity. And the third opportunity is engagement approaches that start with voices of miners, voices of communities. You know, formalizing artisanal mining isn't about telling miners what to do. These are locals. These are business folks. These are folks steeped in a particular culture, in a particular reality. No one can tell them how to change their lives or what they want to do. The whole intent around engagement and formalization is about collaborating with them and collaborating with the broader value chain to define and deliver solutions that make sense. So where I personally come into this mix, Matt, I have a finance background and I'm the mining partner in the Blended Capital Group. And the Blended Capital Group's about integrating capabilities, whether it's financial or whether it's on the ground delivery, towards last mile values. We work in a number of different places. It could be infrastructure, it could be small scale ag, it could be mining. So my role as the mining lead is to bring that together around mining. So if you think about an opportunity area where there's a lack of financing, where there's a lack of capacity around engagement, and where there's inconsistent legal frameworks, it's all about delivering against those gaps so that progress can be brought to bear. 80 or 90% of artisanal miners globally are informal. So what does formalization look like? Shifting towards companies, co-ops, associations. Well, that takes money. So and that takes works on the ground and a legal framework that makes sense. So from a money point of view, it's all about highlighting facts and bringing investors to the table who are interested both in the social impact that's massive, but also in the environmental impact, because energy transition is going to wait if there's supply gaps. But combining that with the financial value, the fact that a portfolio of formalization opportunities lowers risks, and you can be choiceful around which ones you go after and how you go after it. So when you think about it from an investor dynamic, if you formalize, you're multiplying their productivity. 2x, 3x, maybe 5x, depends on the details. So that's real money. It's real money for miners. It's real money for communities. It's an opportunity for investors again. But it's an opportunity that's in the context of delivering value for the miners, of changing lives on the ground for the miners and communities. So that's the basis of work. It's really about that value proposition that makes lives better while being commercially realistic. So then, how do you do that? So basic part of it is a consortium that we've built around different capabilities on the ground towards supporting the work. So 80 or 90% of miners today are informal. So that's a challenge. And there really aren't a lot of capabilities out there to drive broad-based formalization. So what we've done is brought together a series of partners that we're working with towards being able to engage ASM and towards being able to engage site by site, opportunity by opportunity formalization. So two of those partners are really the work on the ground that we have. It's 11 Sources and it's the Alliance for Artisanal Mining. And it's really working with and through those organizations and broader associate members to do the right work in the right way on the ground. Then the other two, so Napier Meridian and BenQ, is recognizing the reality that on the ground is the starting point of broader value chains. So there's a context to this work. So BanQ is digitization, it's e-payment. And you think about digitization for traceability, well, it's hooking from miner to refiner and that ability to tag responsibility from a mining point of view. So that's one part of the broader context. Then Napier Meridian is politics, geopolitics, and influence management. That's the other side of broader context. Because you know as well as I do, take any country, any region, and the dynamics are different around it. So you got to tap into the right dynamics. So with that, part of tapping into the right dynamics is influencing legal frameworks. So being catalytic on the question of why isn't this legal? Why aren't there rules that differentiate ASM from LSM and that position miners to really add value for themselves and for the broader whole? Because there's laws that encourage sustainable development, laws that encourage formalization. So all of that comes together into the broad-based story that, you know, it's one thing to have this eye-popping number, 45 million miners, couple of 100 million people, but what do you do with that? Well, what you do with that is have an investment marketplace and then one-on-one start targeting specific opportunities at scale because it's capital at scale and start attacking them as collaboratively with the miners on the ground and thinking in terms of flexible frameworks. Because you can take any country and it'll be different than almost every other country. So the flexibility to engage and target the right way and influence laws the right way as well is what it's all about. Transition from theoretical, let's make something better, towards practical, and here's how we're going to do it. So that's the essence of my story, Matt.
Well,
And I don't know if you have any questions or comments, but let's talk through.
yeah, I like what you're saying. Gatot, Terry, Fred, guys have any initial thoughts right out of the gate?
Well, initially, just a compliment or two to Rob. He's got such a clear understanding of the sector. It's really good to hear him, and this is not the first time I've had a chance to talk to Rob, but every time I talk to him, he really does have a grasp of the issues and the values, but not just numeric value, but the value of the sector as you know, as a human endeavor, for want of a better word. And so I always appreciate listening to Rob and thank him for his diligence, his research, his thinking. Yeah. He is a true champion of artisanal mining and a rare champion, I might add. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.
Agreed.
I appreciate it. One of the things, Terry, when I first started diving into this area, it did startle me a little bit, the lack of expertise. There's a handful of folks here and there. It's embryonic, but even this, it's an example of the reality that's changing. We're building that awareness, and the first and building that awareness is really the first step towards building broader engagement and broader shifts and outcomes, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I agree completely. Gatot or Fred, do you want to chime in here? Our chairman, Gatot Sugiharto from Indonesia.
Sorry, I'm driving.
Oh, look at you.
Yeah, but I try to hear.
Okay, we'll try to hit him with some good questions here. And then you just hopefully you're not actually driving.
Yeah, I just tuned with my wife.
Okay, good, good, good.
Yeah,
All right.
best not to tell us you're in a car.
Okay, so I do have a few ideas. So I've been watching your articles. I think you actually are covering things really, really well.
Thank you.
My background here has been in Kenya for a long time. I learned how to gold mine here, the way that they mine. I came here in 2017. So when I think about integration, I'm thinking about the logistics. We get a lot of people who come here, they say, okay, I want to buy gold. I say, it's not enough to have money, because we have cash here. We have cash coming for the gold, and they're paying about, what is it, 8% below spot price if they're melting it into 10 grams. And so that really doesn't leave a lot of margin for taxes and all of that kind of stuff. So, and then all of our mining is outside of the major city, so the cash comes to the mines, and at least for the gold, that's the way it goes. And so that whole network is in place. So I always tell people, I say, okay, when the government even tries to come in and regulate, they're not strong enough to really enforce things for long periods of time. You know, they can cause problems and come in and close down areas. But Uganda came in and shut everything down. And then they reopened it and they gave sections to artisanal miners with agreements with the large scale miners. And I've been to Uganda, I've seen what's going on there, and I liked that model. And those cooperatives, the leaders of those cooperatives, leach the tailings from the mercury, which doesn't really reduce mercury, but it does localize the production into one spot. And then there's five, as I understand, there's 5 artisanal mining areas. They're all run by, each is run by a committee, and it's called UGASM, the main branch, but they worked with the government and the large scale miners to allocate a square kilometer in 5 areas in Uganda. But here we're spread everywhere on the western side, across, you know, like up and down the shores of Lake Victoria, heading up to Turkana in the north, and then, you know, on into Uganda. But logistically, it's so easy for the miners to sell the gold, because the same guy that says brings the mercury, he also has cash to buy the gold. So they'll buy the small pieces of amalgamated gold. And then we, you know, if you're familiar with our process, we then do a local leach, which gets the amalgamated gold gets about 25%. And then the leaching here gets local leaching with the vat leaching tanks that don't spin. They get about 60% of our gold. And then what's remaining can be taken out with a CIP plant up to about 90%. But that ecosystem is running every single day. So it's a matter of saying, how do we integrate? Because even if I want to buy the gold, you know, I got to go out there and pay them better than that 8% below spot price, and, you know, kind of haggle unless I'm consistent. So we've looked at certain ways of bringing in, I'll give you another idea, because I really want your feedback on what I've been doing here. I had a demonstration site with a shaker table and a jaw crusher and all of that, but it got political. But when I divided all the pieces up and I found existing operations, and I put this piece there, the water tank there, now I have like 6 demonstration sites that I don't profit from, but we've upgraded each of the 6 sites with one piece of equipment. So when I think about bringing a large scale or money in, like a lender or, you know, an investor, and I don't want them to lose. I don't want them to just set everything up and then they chase them away, which happens more than you'd think. But how do you see us taking the next step with an investor and moving in? Because we do have ties with the government. We've started ASMAC, which is the Artisanal Small-Scale Miners Association of Kenya. And the government has said, okay. And recently now they're talking about a police task force to crack down on illegal artisanal mining. But they're starting to grant, well, they're starting to accept the applications, and they're marking it off on the cadastre. So at this stage, I think there's a chance to do something, but like from your studies and what you're hearing me say about the state of Kenya, from my perspective, what would you do with that? What could you do?
So I think so I think there's a chance to do something for sure, and it's probably worth more detailed conversations offline, maybe with some of my partners in our consortium. But really, at a starting level, looking at the value chain as a whole makes sense. Like, is there opportunities for local processing, different equipment, really changing the flows from ground right through the processing? Short answer is there probably is, from what you said. And then along with that, you've got the rules, you've got the laws around ASM, and you're exactly right. These folks don't make a whole lot of money, and they've got to do what they've got to do. So if there isn't a legal recognition around they're different, and tech structures that make sense, and support structures that encourage professionalization, then by definition, why not stay underground? Because they're not there to just want to pay taxes and become poorer. So there's probably an advocacy piece, but there's probably an investment piece as well that talks about what's a theory of change look like around different equipment and more local processing. That's really worth talking about. And the two go hand in hand, because by definition, if you have investors that want to come in, but the tech side ends up neutering them, then they're not going to be interested. And the last part is, by definition, any opportunity that makes sense, before any investor is going to be interested, it's got to make sense to the guys on the ground, or the men or women on the ground, because it's got to reflect their point of view, their reality. So those conversations need to be had. And if they see opportunity in it for themselves, and if trust is built, why wouldn't they buy into it?
I think you make a good point. I actually did get into the mining, some people fought me on it, but I realized practically if I don't know how to mine, I'm just gonna be standing here pretending I know. So I had a vat leaching place that I participated in with the chairman, and a processing site, and we actually had a mineral dealers and processing license. And we even dug a bit and produced some gold at the vat leaching stage. I'm sorry, yeah, at the leaching stage. And we would get like 200, or no, about 600 grams after 600 to 800 grams after like 3 weeks of leaching, about 120 tons. And those 102 tanks that hold about 120 tons each, maybe 80 to 120 tons. But those points, I think we need to look at the points of where the money changes hands. It's at the mercury level, the small pieces, and then at the elution, at the elution sites where we pull the gold out of the carbon. And if we talk to those guys, I even encouraged the UN. I said, why don't you, one of the advisors, I said, why don't you talk to the people who are currently buying the gold and work to lower that tax rate from like 7% down to like something very reasonable for export, and see if you can legalize the existing ecosystem so you can regulate it more easily. Because if you try to override it, you're this big, and the ecosystem's this big, so those are some of the challenges I'm looking at, because I'm not confident to go invest
100%.
somebody's money at the moment right now, because I only know about 2 people that would probably take a foreign investor seriously, because a lot of people come here quite naive and they get screwed up pretty fast. But there is active mining going and there's growth. So I think, and there's even leeway with the government right now. They're like they said, they've got the Ministry of Mining finally working again. But personally, I'm very interested for people to put, what you're saying, even bring it closer to us. you know, and say, what dialogue needs to happen next? And can we find qualified people to work with? And I do have a few that I would try one transaction with, and build it on a one transaction at a time type rapport rather than trust. But because you can trust if you're not there that your stuff will go, you know, missing. But if you build rapport and you get a good working model on your transactions, I think you could grow substantially, naturally.
100% agree. Like, look, what do I understand about the science of mining? I'm not a geologist. I don't pretend to have a clue, because I'd be silly if I pretend to have a clue. However, at the end of the day, mining's a business. And like any business, it has a value chain and it has commercial relationships. And it has equipment that change the bar on productivity. So if you think about those commercial relationships and what does value chain integration look like, then all of a sudden that lifts up the opportunities, because it's really one thing to talk about formalization, but what is formalization? It's about shifting towards stable, predictable business relationships.
Yeah.
So by definition, thinking about those, it's thinking about who the intermediates are. It's thinking about the legal requirement. It's thinking about the entire flow, supplies into the mine, then miner to refiner and beyond, straight to the end customer. And when you think about it in those terms, all of a sudden there's the opportunity to redefine what the puzzle looks like in terms of different relationships. And that's where the value comes from. And from an investment point of view, you know, I like that, because there's opportunity for social gain, but there's opportunity for productivity as well. And you know, as well as I know, there's some places where it's more practical to do this than other places, where there's active conflict on the ground. By definition, maybe not. Where there's certain degrees of corruption, by definition, maybe not. But everywhere else, so you're talking about Kenya, for example, of course there's opportunity to do that. And it's a matter of thinking through how to how to build the structure based on the Lego blocks of those relationships.
Yeah.
I think if I could just speak, am I muted?
Yeah, you're good. I can hear you.
Okay. I think what I'm hearing from you, Matt, and from Rob is so Rob's identified two possible partners in the quest, one being Levin Sources, the other one being the Alliance for Responsible Mining. And it seems to me that and what you're saying, Matt, is that if Rob wants to move into, say, Kenya or say Indonesia, he needs to find a local wisdom, a local group, a local consultancy to help him and his blended capital navigate through the situation, as I'm sure he's hoping Levin Sources and ARM will be doing. And so I think it's a case of everything you've said, Matt, is true and valid, but it's not, but somehow Rob and his team need to start linking up with local people in selected countries and say, okay, guys, we are interested in this country. And I'm thinking of Indonesia because of Gatot being on the call and the situation at GCMF. I'm thinking of you for Kenya. And then slowly work his way in through you guys into a situation where some serious investment can take place. And I'm sure that's exactly the line he's taking with Levin Sources and ARM. And I would just say the same thing with GCMF. Rob, once you've given it some further thought, then I'm sure you will find the guys on the ground who would be happy, or Uganda even is another one that's been mentioned, who would be happy to help you navigate through the situations you find yourself in. Is that phrase?
You got it. And at the end of the day, it's one thing to talk about Levin Sources or ARM, and you know they're the true experts, the true renowned experts, and with and through them and beyond them, for that matter, there's networks of associates. So what's the work all about? Well, understanding starting point reality, call it value chain analysis, call it socioeconomic analysis in any given country, because you got to understand both what's there now and what's the context of what's there. So the value chain and the socioeconomic reality. And then based on that and based on dialogue, and it's two-way dialogue, it's not telling, it's asking with miners, what are the opportunities around that? It's working its way through to approaches, so call them solutions, call them approaches that make sense and make sense to everyone, starting with the folks on the ground. And then you're cooking with gas in terms of a possible project that may require small investment or a more significant investment, because there's a theory of change that says this is the reality today. We can do this, that, and the other thing that changes the reality from this to that, and that delivers whatever it delivers. And that theory of change becomes the basis for an investor dialogue that just makes sense. And in our case, the funding we're setting up is geared towards portfolios of opportunities. So towards exactly those kinds of conversations at scale, because by definition, there are so many miners out there in so many places with so many diverse realities. We've got to have those conversations at scale. They can't be one-off, and they've got to be grounded in a commercial reality. And what I mean by that is, look, this isn't about trying to become as rich as possible, but it's about impact investment that's maybe concessionary, so not making every last cent, but delivering value to investors, delivering value to miners on the ground, leaving something sustainable on the ground that improves lives. But and when you think about the notion, Terry or Matt took it out of improving lives, it starts with that. What are lives like today? So what's the value chain like today? So that analysis, and what's the context like today? So the socioeconomic analysis.
That makes a lot of sense.
It does. And what I also said to Rob the last time we had a chance to chat, and he mentioned the two dimensions of impact capital being patient, no rush to get a return on investment, and concessionary, willing to live with a lower um, uh, net present value, NPV, or whatever the systems are that they would be using to measure return on investment. But the third thing I mentioned to Robin, I think I've said this to you as well, Matt, is that that money needs to be rationed. We do not want to see a big chunk of money arriving in Kenya, Zimbabwe, Uganda, or Indonesia, and then suddenly it distorts everything. Money distorts everything. That money
100%.
needs to be rationed out. That's the only word I can think of, but there might be a better word than that. But somehow, whoever controls the funding needs to take it very seriously, and we'll just dribble that money out one step at a time, one change at a time, until we begin to build up the story rather than arriving with a chunk of money and expecting miracles.
I could not agree more. That is
Yeah.
any amount of money or too big of a plan, that, like I was taught here, I learned many things, it's just a straight on difficult way, but always have two reasons to be there. And the primary one that you really want to accomplish, make it less of of the point, but don't come under the guise of charity either, because really people are serious about business in mining. It's not an approach where we're coming in to say, hey, we're going to help you out. So that's why I'm excited about our AI tool that can actually, I can leave people with WhatsApp with that, a real tool they can ask ChatGPT any question they want about their specific problems. And it's really nice little program. It works on WhatsApp, but that idea is, it came to me when I was thinking, I need to leave something with these guys. I need to leave a version of myself that they can ask a question to anytime. And then as Gatot said, our chairman, he's like, let's do a dream team inside the Global Community Miners Forum, and we'll answer any questions that ChatGPT can't answer. We'll start to mirror the ecosystem, like who's doing what, who supplies the cyanide, who supplies explosives, and then put them in there and let this be a mining tool, right? So it's another connector, and that way you can start to integrate with the dialogue of the daily activities, and also get a map of who's doing what where. Then you can, like Terry said, you can just come in slowly, like I've done when I divided my equipment up. Right there, I've got rapport at 6 locations right now. And I have one that I want to talk to Terry about putting a mini gold catcher there. And build that relationship with the miner himself, whoever's running the pit, him or herself, who's ever running that area, and has the respect locally to be able to grow. Because as soon as we partner with somebody, they're going to get targeted. As soon as it gets to be too obvious that they've got some outside support, it's going to make their lives more difficult too. Because everyone's going to say, oh, you got an unfair advantage. We have to be serious and subtle and consistent, like Terry just said, and just grow naturally. Because now that I'm there, I can come and go as I want. But if I start growing too fast, or if I'm around too much, people start saying, hey, what are you really doing? And the other strategy is just come in and no apologies, and work with the president or something like that, and then the local governor, but those are some of the things I'm looking at as far as if I was, because I have a few people like Vishal, he's not here, but Vishal is pushing right now. He's a Kenyan, he's an Indian Kenyan, and he's also pushing to do something bigger here in Kenya, because we do have gold. We have a great big belt of it, and we don't have any. We have two medium-sized operations, but we can do a lot more here. And Kenya is a friendly place, but you have to be on top of it, 100%.
So you both said important things, Terry and Matt. And so to me, and I can say this honestly, having been a controller in past lives, there needs to be a robust control environment, full stop. That whether it's $1, whether it's $1 billion, there needs to be a robust control environment. So what's a robust control environment all about? It's how do you make sure that funding is targeted and effectively managed towards the ultimate goal? So, okay, what do you need for that? Well, you need transparency, because if it's in a smoky room somewhere, by definition, smoky rooms are the enemy of proper controls. The second thing you need is specificity. So if there's gonna be a project, pick a place to do something, pick a thing, then that place and that thing and the theory of change around that place and thing need to be specific. So what are we going to do? How do we know there's a reasonable probability of success? What are the risks? How are they going to be managed? So if we think in terms of specificity, in terms of theory of change, and the whole 9 yards that go with it, and do that transparently, then by definition, that gets at the point both of you are making, which is, this is about business, and business requires control mechanisms.
Yeah. It looks like we might have a question for you from whoever's on the iPhone. If you want to unmute and ask your question. There you are.
Hello,
Welcome.
this is Janet Adeyemi. How are
Hello.
you?
Good.
This is Janet Adeyemi.
Yeah,
I'm
we
calling
can.
from Houston. Yeah. I run Women in Mining, and I've listened to the conversation, Women in Mining Nigeria, and I've listened to the conversation. The conversation is quite interesting. But one thing I want to ask, because I know I've engaged Rob Karpati quite often on my LinkedIn page. And most of us, we talk without having met one another personally. I don't know, maybe Matthew is the one I'm talking to right now. I know we've been having chats and various kind of chats too. However, where I'm going to is that you see the issue of mining ASM in Africa is quite intriguing, and one has to be very, very careful. Very careful because so many things are being mixed. You have the issue of knowledge, the knowledge issue, the technology issue, and the sustainability issue to deal with. So when people talk about money as being the issue, I don't think it is purely money. I think so many things goes into it. Right now, my recent exposure, to University of British Columbia in Canada made me see that sustainability is key. One thing is that even when you mine, what is the consequences of that mining to your environment? So when we say we are looking for funds, is it after degrading an environment, or how do you reclaim the environment? So the balancing of those things, I think, is critical. And that is why I believed in what the previous speaker, said. I don't know, maybe his theory, what he said, where funds should not just come in a rush. The funds should be gradual. We should first of all have a roadmap, you understand, on what we want to do. Lay the foundation of that. Make sure you get the technique right. Make sure you get the knowledge right. And then when you now want to apply funds, how do you apply funds? Let there be some tests, a pilot cases, you understand, of moving completely away from using crude tools, you understand, to semi-automated tools. And then in doing that method, we are able to get adequate results. But if you rush in money into a system, you understand, and then those things are missing. At the end of the day, when you do a critical cost-benefit analysis, you find out that you have created more destruction rather than wealth. You have short-term wealth, you understand, but long-term implications. If you go back to Nigeria, where I come from, you still see the mine pits of 1940, 1950, still not yet recovered, not reclaimed. The danger, you understand, those are radioactive pools, you understand, standing to be destroyed. And in parts of South Africa, you have such things. So I don't believe that is the age we should be in. The age we should be in is to utilize mining appropriately. And then the second thing is that the world keeps on shining and condemning ASM. I believe that majority of the mine products, especially gold, you understand, comes from the ASM community. So it is very important that this template is set right, you understand, where when it is done, more attention can be focused, you understand, to actually support the ASM community, to get it right. Thank you.
Couldn't agree more. Thanks, James. So first things first, I've enjoyed engaging with you on LinkedIn, and I appreciate what you do with women in mining. It's really important. And just as a quick shout out, 30% of artisanal miners are female globally, 50% in Africa. So you think about it, it's a massively gender diverse sector. But anyway, to your point, investment in ASM isn't money for the sake of money, because that's the fastest way to destroy. Investment in ASM is about capacity development towards long-term value. And if we think about it that way, so it's one thing capacity for the actual mining process. It's a different thing so equipment training, good practices. It's another thing capacity for relationship management, so with suppliers and with customers. It's a third thing around broader development. And it's a fourth thing around governance, really, how to govern a cooperative or a company. So if we think about if we think about funding as really a strategic tool towards enhancing capacity development in order to change outcomes, then that's pretty powerful pretty quickly. And by definition, capacity can only be changed at a certain speed, whether it's the speed of trust up front to get folks on board, whether it's later on the speed of training, education, process development, and so on. and being real about that and being deliberative about that is really important. In some ways, it's almost traditional change management, but people don't think about it that way. And traditional change management always starts with shifts in capacities.
Yeah, thank you. I agree completely. Thank you so much, Rob.
Thanks.
We're really happy to see you, Janet. I'm glad you're here.
Mhm.
Yeah, this Fred Ouko, he's here. He's actually one of our miners here in Kenya. Fred, do you want to weigh in on this? Let's see if we can get him up to come up. Fred?
Okay. Kindly, may you just uh, pardon the question. You know, I was out, then I'm back. I didn't know
I was
exactly.
just saying, on the matter of just the discussion of improving the mining overall, probably with a little bit of influx of investment capital or something like that to bring in people for successful like growth, somewhere in that neighborhood. If you've caught much of the conversation. Fred?
Not sure he hears us.
Well, he's out kind of in home base somewhere. No, wrong go. Fred, can you hear me? Okay, well, when you get your signal back, chime in again. But I'm liking this conversation. I also think that you should meet a guy named Vishal here in Kenya. If you guys are thinking about coming into Kenya, at least talk to him. He's got a few people interested in doing something as well. And I think just having a dialogue of who's looking to do what, where, is especially here in Kenya, you can get a pretty clear picture of the ground pretty quick with this group. In something in Indonesia, like we've got Gatot here, he knows that whole country pretty in and out on every element. I've been there. He's taken me around. He has the respect of the mining community throughout, and we're happy that he's our chairman. But I'm liking this discussion. Go ahead.
Yeah, like it's been a great conversation. And so number one, Matt, I really appreciate you setting it up and making it happen. It's been great actually meeting you instead of through a LinkedIn screen. Number two, we should set up that conversation offline and talk. But at the end of the day, this has been absolutely great because it's not just that we've talked about important things. We've talked about roadmaps and approaches and how do we change outcomes? How do we change lives? How do we change productivity? And it's a process, and the faster, the more awareness there is on the implications of it, the faster folks engage in it, the faster outcomes are shifted. So I've really appreciated this conversation.
Yeah, it's been really good. Good thought. Anyone else want to ask our guest here? Rob, do you want to be part of our Global Community Miners Forum? Would you join us in our
Sure.
call? Hopefully, I get the permission from our chairman here. He doesn't kill me, but I think it would be really beneficial to have you part of our dialogue.
Of course,
Yeah.
we invite Rob to be part of GCMF. Yeah, because actually we need a lot of information and knowledge to develop business perspective from community mining. Okay, I already at home, so I can a little bit sharing the information from Indonesia. Actually, in Indonesia, about community mining, yeah, we from 10 years ago, I tried to use community mining, not artisanal mining, yeah. Because artisanal mining is government or people always push us to use manual equipment, yeah. So we can use modern equipment or high tech, because why artisanal mining use modern technology? Yeah, if you artisanal mining is you use by your hand. Yeah, so I change the word is community mining. So we only different with large scale mining only in scale and uh, how much the investment. But Indonesia situation, the government, I think, still driving by large scale mining. Yeah, so they don't want community mining develop and get developed in modern mining. Yeah, we have some good uh, mining activities, but the government didn't want to check it. Yeah, so success story is thing that our government didn't want to know. Success story in community mining. Indonesia, we have a lot gold source. Let's say 10 to 20 ppm. Yeah, so actually it's investment is not make us upset. Yeah, with the production we can make like 5%. We can collect to be more capital to our equipment and so on. But again, and very difficult regulation and the permit doesn't emerge, doesn't issued by the government.
Thanks, Gatot.
Yeah.
I mean, to your point, every country is different, and every country has different laws that promote or get in the way, and broader realities that promote or get in the way. And some countries are definitely harder than others. But to me, but Gatot and Matt, this is a first conversation, and I've really enjoyed the webinar. And my sort of closing thoughts as we close off are: number one, this is the first of many conversations we're going to have. Number two is opportunities are massive, just massive, and it's a matter of going after it. And going after it requires an integrated approach. So it's value chain, it's human rights driven, it's sustainable development driven, but it's in the context of the broader whole. And get nailing that down situationally is really the opportunity, because every place is a little bit different when looking at the value chain or looking at the socioeconomic reality. So thank you very much. I've really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to talking again soon, and looking forward to seeing the video on LinkedIn as well soon.
All right. Well, thanks, Rob. Really appreciate it. And yeah, I hope you have a great day. We're just closing out our days here. So again, appreciate it. We'll get it put together and then post it up on our YouTube. And
We are united, GCMF is our name. Fighting for the legality of our minds. Although it's difficult, we never despair. We keep on mining till we achieve prosperity.